Hi everyone. Today we're going to talk about one of my favorite topics, which is copyright. As we're talking about your information literacy or information fluency, you need to think about copyright. Copyright basically is sort of the rules of the road or the lay of the land. As an information literate person, we need to make sure that we are respecting the intellectual property of others. Especially because we need to be modeling this for our own students. Oftentimes, I might hear teachers say things ranging from, oh, yeah, copyright, I get it, or I'm using this for teaching, so it's fair use, or just plain old, who cares, which is a pretty reckless attitude and one that we don't want to be demonstrating and modeling for our students. We want to really think about, are we respecting the intellectual property rights of others? Why do we need to do this? Because copyright, when it was designed way back in the 1790s, was to protect creativity. And by making sure that we honor intellectual property, we're protecting not only ourselves and our students, but also our employer. So, what we want to talk about briefly here is a little bit of background on copyright and fair use. We want to make sure that our fair use is transformative, and we want to make sure that we're fully aware of CC0 or public domain, which we're going to talk about at the end, because we want to avoid copyright confusion, annoyance, and avoidance, because none of that is useful to our students. First, some misconceptions. I often will hear people say, if it's on the internet, you can take it and use it. It's in the public domain, meaning it belongs to all of us. Or if it's on YouTube, people think they can just take it and use it. Regarding fair use, many times people think if we use something in the practice of teaching, it's automatically fair use, but that's not true either. Anything that's copyrighted means that it is in a fixed form. In other words, since 1989, anything that is put into a fixed form, whether it is written on paper or put on a website, is considered copyrighted. They no longer have to show the official copyright symbol. So we can't just assume because it's not there that it's not copyrighted, but rather the opposite. So what does that mean? Well, first of all, some little things aren't included in copyright. Titles of books or movies, for example, can often be reused. Short phrases, slogans, or ideas, useful articles, basic facts, and anything unfixed. So, in other words, a lecture that you're giving to your students is considered unfixed until you actually have written it down or have recorded it. At that point in time, it would be fixed and copyrighted. When something's copyrighted, in other words, appears in a fixed form, it means all rights reserved. We can't just take that item and use it without permission. So how do I know if my use of copyrighted material is fair use? There are 4 fair use standards. First of all, the purpose and character of the work, the nature of it, the amount that I'm going to use, and if it has an effect on the potential market. Many times people will talk about number 4 as a way to get around their use of copyrighted material, but all 4 standards have to be met. The best tool that you can use this is called the Code of Best Practices for Fair Use. This is a tool for supporting the fair use reasoning process developed by Kristen Hokanson and Renee Hobbs. This is an excellent resource that appears in our course room, and it walks you through the steps of reasoning. This would be a great process to use in your classroom with your students, regardless of age, to help them go through that critical thinking process if they want to use copyrighted materials in their work. Ultimately, the question we have to answer is whether our use of this copyrighted material is transformative. What does that mean? There are 2 tests for transformativeness. First of all, are you using the copyrighted material for a different purpose? And in your use, are you adding value to it? Some examples of adding value for different purposes are many of the things that we might do in our classrooms. For example, satire or parody, or personal reporting. So in other words, a student could take a news article and do their own version of it, a parody or report of it. Or it may be something that you quote to kick off a class lecture or a discussion, and so on. But you might be thinking, what if I don't want to go to all that trouble, or I can't, or I simply don't have the time to go through a reasoning process to see if my use of copyrighted stuff is fair use? Well, there's a wonderful solution, and that's Creative Commons. Creative Commons started back in 2001 as a global nonprofit. It's a means for people to share their creativity and for others to find it without all the legal stuff related to traditional copyright. This is a self-licensing system where the creator determines the level of usage this item can have by others. The best way to understand Creative Commons is to license your own materials. And so I encourage teachers working with students of every age to have your students put a Creative Commons license on their own work. Because when they have to give permissions to the rest of us for what they can do, they will understand exactly how these licenses work. So let's talk about the symbols. The symbols are pretty easy to understand. The little person is the attribution symbol, or by. That is considered something we should be doing in all of our use of materials, whether they're Creative Commons or not. We should always give attribution. The only time we wouldn't give attribution or tell us who the author is if it is Creative Commons 0, which we're going to talk about later. The little roundabout symbol is share alike, meaning you can take this item and do what you want with it as long as the new creation you make is relicensed under the similar Creative Commons license. Non-commercial, of course, means you can't make money from it. And the equal sign stands for no derivatives. In other words, you've got to take this item I've created, whether it's a poem or a movie or an image, and you cannot alter it in any way. So let's test this out a little bit. If this is the Creative Commons license, can I use the image to make a t-shirt and sell at school as long as I give credit? The answer, of course, is no, because it is a non-commercial. If this is the license, can I make a similar item except change or tweak just one or two things as long as I give credit and don't make money on it? Again, the answer is no, because this object was licensed with a non-derivative. What about this one? Can I use a song with this license as the beat track under my own music as long as I give it credit, make no money on it, and then license my new song with the same license? The answer to this one would be yes. And finally, if it's this, can I take this video and use it any way I want to as long as I give credit? And the answer is yes. So under Creative Commons, as you can see, the leveling or adding of the different permissions or lack of permissions goes from least open to most open, with most open being CC0 or public domain. You can go to Creative Commons to do a search, and notice it's going to look through many other tools such as Flickr, Jamendo, Europeana, and so on. But chief among these is attribution. Notice that the little by symbol, the little person, is in every single one of them. So bare minimum is that we are giving credit. We want to make sure that we are always doing that. The greatest way to license your own materials is use Creative Commons' own license wizard that helps you go through the questions, you answer the questions, and then it tells you which license to put on. Now, a little side note. A lot of times in classrooms, we are confusing, or our students kind of confuse the issue of plagiarism or copyright violation. So of course, plagiarism is using even a small amount of another's intellectual property in a written or other work without attribution. This applies to any kind of work, no matter how old it is. So for example, I could copy or use an older item that's in the public domain, and I could use it however I want, and that is not a copyright violation. However, if this item I were using was a quote from Ben Franklin or Socrates, and I didn't give attribution for that quote, that would be plagiarism, because the person viewing my work might think that the quote was mine and not belonging to Franklin or Socrates. Do you get the difference? So oftentimes we have lots of questions about how this works. Remember, you want to look for the newest and least restrictive of all Creative Commons licenses, and that's CC0, which means this item belongs to all of us. It's in the public domain. I can take it, I can even make money from it, and I don't have to give any attribution. It is a free cultural work and there are no rights reserved. Most of the images that I use in my different presentations come from things such as Pixabay or Pexels, where I can get lots of free things to use. These are some other sites where you can find Creative Commons licensed items as well. Don't forget that you can also do a Google Images search, and you can filter by license so that you are finding an item that you are free to use any way that you'd like. Some friendly suggestions to create without concern is always go and find something that is CC0 if you can, and especially if it's just something that's decoration like the little person here, you want to just simply use a public domain item. If you're using something copyrighted, make sure you use the tool to support your reasoning, and when in doubt, ask permission. There are lots of great sites that you can learn more about, and these are also posted in our course room. And again, being true to what I'm telling you, we want to be sure that we are always citing the works of others in all of our work. Thanks, and I hope that this helped to clear up the differences between copyright, Creative Commons, and fair use just a little bit for you.